Now we're going to be talking about pants, and when we talk about pants, we're just talking about trousers, and we need to know the measurements we need to take before we go on to the pants, before we go on to the drafting of pattern or the cutting of our clothes. So that is what I'm just going to show us right now. We need the trouser length, we need the waist measurement, we need the hips measurement, and we need the tie, we need the belt too. So I'm just going to show us those areas that we need right now. So you're going to measure yourself. Since it's not high waist, pants, trousers are normally not high waist, so I am just going to do the normal waist, and you can measure yourself this way. I want to give mine 37 inches. Okay, so please note that will be the measurement I am working with. Then my waist is going to be here, not this place. Then I'm using inches now because I want it more like that. Then this is 37. It's not so tight, so I just want it this way. Like, you just have to ask yourself that, are you okay with this measurement or not, or the clients that you're dealing with. So I'm using the waist 37, and here is the tie. Please don't make it too tight. Don't make it too tight when you're measuring the tie, especially, else you finally, okay, I could actually make it 24 this way, but I don't want to use 24, so I'm going to give it another allowance, like 0.5, that's 24.5 for easy movement. So the next thing I'm going to measure now is the bell. Like, this place is called the bell. So depending on how you want it penciled, I could use 11, I could use 12, I could use 13, but I want to use 12. So this is the bell side, and that is all. Okay, you need to take your hips measurements too, because we are going to be using the hips. We want to know how it's going to fit well. So you just, okay. My hips is 41, but I am going to be using 42 so that I'm going to be free. I don't want a very tight hips. So we are just going to the table right now to know how we are going to draw the pattern. Now we are on the table to draft out the pants pattern. And the first thing I want us to notice is our borderline. We need to make our borderline here. And here is it. Also, this side, we need to make the borderline here. Straight down. That is why our long ruler is important for us to use. Okay, so that is that. Then the next thing for us to do is to check our length, our trouser length, like to measure our trouser length. And mine is 37. So from this point, I will start my measurement from the very tip of that point there, and I'll mark 37. That's my real measurement. So I can just add like 1 to 2 inches for the M line. So I'm having 39 now because of the folding back in. Then the next thing for me to do is to measure my waist. How am I going to do that? You know, I told you that my waist, I'll be using 31 for my waist. So you're going to divide 31 by 4 because our waist is round. We'll divide 31 by 4, and we now add 1. That one is for that. because of that, and for ease, that's why we're going to add the 1. So I have 8.75 now. This is 8.5, 0.6.7, then 8.5 here. So that is it. Then we want to get the midway, the mid of the trouser. How am I going to get the mid of the trouser? That's 37 divided by 2. The length of a trouser divided by 2, that is 18. So you just mark your 18. Mark your 18.5. I'm just marking it again here to make a straight line. Okay, that's it. So the next thing for us to do is to get our flap. Our flap is our waist, from the waist here to this very side of the trouser. Can we see? Our waist to this very side of the trouser is what we call the flap, and the extended part to the back is called the crotch. So how am I going to get the flap? The flap is not constant. It depends on the length of your trouser. So I am using 37. 9 inches is okay for the flap. If you are using something like 40 as your length, then you can go ahead and use 9.5 inches. Or if you are longer than that, like you are tall and your length is like 45 for trouser, then you'll be using something like 10 inches. That's for pants. For pants, like trouser that you're going to put at the lower side of your waist. So I'm just going to mark 9 inches now. Then I'll mark 9 inches again here to make a straight line. So we are almost getting there. We have the flap, we have this side could be the new length side. So the next thing for us to do now is to measure our tie. We are going to measure our tie, and how we're going to do that? Our tie divided by 2. Mine is 24.5. So 24.5 divided by 2, that's 12.25. So I am just going to mark my tie here. But before I do that, I would love to do it first on the midway. I'll mark my tie here. That's 12.25. So it's going to easy. Was it a mistake? So to have the bell measurements, we are going to make sure that we are on the same page for straight line. To achieve the straight line, so you bring your ruler back up on the waistline here, measure the 37 length and have a straight line. So on the bell, you divide it by 2. I have my bell to be 12, and divided by 2, that is 6. That is 6. And I want us to know that whatever we are doing here on the front part, we are not adding the sewing allowance for now. The back takes the sewing allowance. So we are going up back here on the flap. We're going to measure our waist just like we did on the waist. Waist divided by 4 plus 1 for our, and we mark it up. Then on this side to give a shape to what we are doing, we are going to come in a little bit by 0.5 just to give it a shape. Then we'll use our hip curve or any curve ruler that you have to make a curve down here. Okay, so on the flap we are going to extend our flap here by 1 quarter. That's what we're going to extend our flap with here, and we are going to make a curve down to our waistline. Can we see? Down to our waistline this way. So the next thing for us to do is to join to our bell. We are going to join back to our bell, and here is it. So before we finish, finally we are just going to extend. We are going to make a curve with the curve ruler like this, just to make it curvy. We are ladies and we are more curvy than the guys, and we just have to make it curvy. So the next thing for us to do now is to mark for the back. I've used this pen for the front side. I'm going to use this red color to indicate the back part. The first thing we're going to do is to extend our crotch here by 4 inches. So we'll mark here. We'll extend our flap by 1.5. We'll do the same here. Okay, let me just 1.5, and we'll join. Join here. Then on this line we are going to come down by 0.5. So I'm just going to use the hip curve a little bit to make the curve here. And here we are just going to come up a little bit by 1/4, but I prefer 1.5. But basically because our line is not so much here, so we're just going to use the 1 inches here, but normally it ought to be 1/4 or 1.5. But if you're using 1 inch, that means you'll be very wrong doing that. And how we're going to mark the waist here at the top here, we're going to mark it using this line.
What are you looking for?
Good. So on our waist here, just follow how I am going to measure it. We have our waist normally to be 31 divided by 4. So the exact thing that you got by 31 divided by 4, that's 7.75. You are going to place it at this tip here like where our waistline is for the front part, and we are going to mark the half of 31. What's half of 31? That is 15 and half, and this is it, 15 and half. The next thing for us to do is to extend by 1 inch, 1 inch 1/4, like 1/4, and we'll be having something like this here. So it's on this line that you are going. Do you see the difference? Like, it's not exactly on this line, though very close to it, but not exactly on this line. And here we have our 1/4. So here you're just going to come up. You're probably going to make a straight line. Okay, then you'll join this line back to the tip here. These are back pattern. So then the half we came down with here is where we are going to join back to this place. And why did it come down by ½ inch here? We came down by ½ inch here because of issues we have when it comes to joining back. If you do not come down by that 0.5 inch, that means you're not going to have something very accurate to deal with. This line here will not be joining back to this line here when you are holding back your inches and allowances and every other thing like that. So the next thing for us to do now is to have our measurement, our allowance here in front. This is just to create much more allowance for us. Sorry. Okay, 1 inch here. 1 inch is okay. Or use your hip curve then. So the one with the back, the red color is for the back pattern, and this will just have a straight line for the folding back. Please, the front too is having this. The front too is having this, so don't make the mistake of. So we have our pants, and how do we know the dart side? We know the dart side by our nipple to nipple. So my nipple to nipple is 9 centimeters, and I'm going to start my measurements from this place. Not, this particular part is actually part of the clothes before, but we have to remove it. So we're just going to have it here, and the drawing will not be as, it's just a straight line down here. You can give it like 12 centimeters then, and this particular place is for the back alone. I am calculating the allowance here for the back alone. and this is the stuff we are bringing back in here. So this that goes for the back alone, and now we are through with our pattern for pants. So we can just use this to reel this out on an other paper for the front part. We're just going to reel this part on another paper for either the front or the back, then so that you'll be able to cut on your fabric. Or either ways, we're going to cut this part out first. Let me just show you the original. You cut out this part first. Use it on your fabric. That means you are cutting the back first. Then when you are through with that, you are going to remove it on the fabric and recut the paper by cutting out the front part. Then you will do that to your front. Please don't forget to put extra allowance at the topmost part here. Okay. So that is what I am just going to do. I am going to cut out the front part first and cut out So here's the pattern. Here's the trouser pattern. This is what we are going to have using this. So for the sewing techniques, I am not going to use the whole pattern. I am just going to have it cut along the way, probably the short knicker type, going by 22, 21, 20 inches. That's what I am just going to. Okay, let me just tell you what I'm going to use now. I'm going to use 20 and add sewing allowance here. So for the purpose of this sewing class, this is what I am going to do. So if you want to try yours, you can have it from this side, but for this class I am just going to have a short sneaker pants for it. Thank you. So this is the pants, and for jumpsuit, instead of us to just use 9 inches for the flap here, you're not going to use 9 inches for the flap because it's more or less like high waist trouser. So that's to tell us that even if we want to have an high waist trouser, we are not using flap 9 inches. No. For jumpsuits or play suits. The difference between jumpsuit and play suit is that this is very short, like it has a bum short side. The play suit can have an attached bodice reaching here alone, like it could be as short as this. It's just like a bum short attached to the normal clothes. So it is the same way you're going to approach jumpsuit. It's the same way you're going to approach a play suit, but your flap is going to be different. How are we going to calculate your flap? This is how I do mine. Waist divided by 3 plus 3 inches. That is how I calculate my flap for play suit or my jumpsuit. So I will have a flap of 31, which is my waist, plus 3 inches, and I am just going to use calculator to do that. That's 10.33, then plus 3, that gives me 13. So I am going to use 13 inches for my flap here. So that means I am measuring 13 inches here. Instead of the 9 we measured for the normal pants, I'm going to give it extra inches, and that's about 4 inches longer than what it ought to be in the normal flap. So this is the only difference there. So the remaining measurements, you're just going to do it exactly. And please note again that it is our jumpsuit is our bodies. If you do not have video on bodies, it's advisable you get it so that you'll be able to get what I'm saying better. The bodies plus pants, trouser. The only difference there is the flap. You are extending the flap because it's like an high waist soft. It's meeting the waistline back. So that is what we are going to do. And if you are not so sure of this a way, you can also have a way of measuring your customer or even yourself. By coming this way, you're going to bring your tape rule in between your laps. You bring your tape rule in between your laps. Then you measure where your waist is stopping at the back here. Mine is here, I'm very sure this is where it stops. Then I'll hold the tape rule here and measure where my other bodies is going to start from. So I have like 32 here, and 32 divided by 2 gives me 16, like 3 inches extra. But doing that, I'm going to have